This is the original Flora, Nabokov's final novel. Well, his final incomplete novel. Inside, you can see Nabokov's own handwriting in these index cards. These cards have been transcribed at the bottom. You can see his corrections. And as the book moves towards the end, the story becomes less and less coherent because the novel is incomplete. Let us look briefly at the chronology of the novel. Nabokov planned the novel in 1973, began writing it in 1975, and was working on it in 1977 when he became ill and died, leaving instructions that the manuscript be destroyed. In 1973, Nabokov wrote to his friend about the first tentative vision of Laura. Then in the December of the next year, he recorded the tentative title of the future work in his diary, the original of Laura. Dying is fun. In 1975, after a period of recuperation, he wrote, "I am now returning zestfully to the abyss of my new novel." In the April of 1976, Vera would write, "He does not know," he says, "what is more brilliant, the novel itself or its acronym, and this is as much as he can disclose at the moment." On the October of that same month, Nabokov would write this beautiful letter. As he reads Laura, he says, "My audience consisted of peacocks, pigeons, my long-dead parents, 2 cypresses, several young nurses crouching around, and a family doctor so old as to be almost invisible. Perhaps because of my stumblings and fits of coughing, the story of my poor Laura had less success with my listeners than it will have, I hope, with intelligent reviewers when properly published." Mere 5 months after Vera informed a friend that Nabokov was still busy with the book, he was taken into intensive care at a Swiss hospital and died on the 2nd of July, 1977. One thing you'll notice is that the prose is much softer than in his other works. The theme is supposed to be built up by slow accumulations of the surroundings of Laura, who is a Philistine. Nabokov gives us the most explicit hint about the novel's structure in saying this. Her exquisite bone structure immediately slipped into a novel and became in fact the secret structure of that novel, and besides supporting a number of poems. You'll notice that the novel's style is never dense enough to be anything but a scaffolding. So Laura's frailty, her almost wisp-like existence, mirrors the novel's style. Here I wish to point out one Nabokovian device that spans across all of his works. If Nabokov makes some character's sexual life overtake their mental life, he is saying that the character is mediocre or that it's a Philistine. But more importantly, he does not make a connection between a brilliant mind and a moral one. Ada and Van in Ada are some of the most brilliant minds in literature, but they are also some of the most immoral minds in literature. Their brilliance seems to redeem them to the reader of the story because the narrator is enchanting. The characters in themselves are never redeemed by their brilliance. Similarly, Laura is a character who is both mediocre and immoral. Whatever beauty she possesses is the beauty of the eye of the beholder, you see. Flora is the original of Laura, the main character in Ivan's novel. Flora's story is being written by Ivan Vaughan, one of her lovers. Flora is married to a neurologist, Philip Wilde, who is in the process of destroying himself by slowly erasing his form in his own mind. I'm obviously not going to review the novel because it's incomplete and thus would not be fair to its author. I think it's a testament to Nabokov's astuteness that today when we discuss the novel, we discuss more its publication than its substance. I think Nabokov had anticipated that the echo of gossip invites Philistines to a room which otherwise would have only been occupied by artists. I want to end this video by paying homage to one of Nabokov's structural tricks. He is going to etch a character's image into our mind by forming a pattern of images. On page 23, as the narrator attempts to describe Flora, he says, "Only by identifying her with an unwritten, half-written, rewritten, difficult book could one hope to render at last what contemporary descriptions of intercourse so seldom convey, because newborn and thus generalized in the sense of primitive organisms of art, as opposed to the personal achievement of great English poets dealing with an evening in the country, a bit of sky in a river, the nostalgia of remote sounds, things utterly beyond the reach of Homer or Horace. Readers are directed to that book on a very high shelf in a very bad light, but already existing as magic exists, and death, and as shall exist from now on, the mouth she made automatically while using that towel to wipe her thighs after the promised withdrawal. 100 pages later, Flora's lover, as he discusses his novel My Laura, admits this: "The eye of the book is a neurotic and hesitant man of letters who destroys his mistress in the act of portraying her. Statically, if one can put it that way, the portrait is a faithful one. Such fixed details as her trick of opening her mouth when toweling her ingwen, or of closing her eyes when smelling an inodorous rose, are absolutely true to the original." I do not think the manuscript should have been published, because it requires a dozen or so more patterns of this kind to make a novel.